great way to prepare yourself mentally for physics exams is to expect the unexpected. I was going to pause for a moment and talk a little bit about exam technique and preparing yourself for exams. You may not know, but the doctorate in my name is a doctorate in educational neuroscience. So blending what we know about the brain with how does that help us kind of learn in education, particularly in the high school setting, because I have the great joy of being a high school science teacher as well. So you know that if you are feeling really, really anxious about an exam or a test or something like that, the first thing you want to do is, if your anxiety is too much, is to bring yourself back from that edge. You've probably heard this already. So things like mindfulness activities. So things like box breathing. So you breathe in, hold it, you breathe out, you hold it, you breathe in, you hold it, and you try and slow that box cycle down as much as you can have. That actually has quite an immediate and significant effect on your physiology, reducing your anxiety, reducing your fight or flight response. So there's this continuum between rest and digest, when everything's chill and you're laid back and digesting literally food, but also life and all the, in all its joys and beauties, and the fight or flight. Now, you can reduce your stress levels, as I said, by those kind of mindfulness activities to a certain point. You don't want to reduce it too much because a little bit of stress actually boosts performance. And telling yourself that you're relaxed when you're clearly not is actually not terribly effective. So what you want to do is get yourself into the fight rather than the flight mode. So evolution has prepared us for, we turn around a corner and we see a massive big predator and we're going to run away from that because we're fearful of it. We know that it's a threat to us, and so our response is to run away quickly. And so elevated adrenaline levels, elevated cortisol levels, they are all things that help us to run away, but they also are things to help us to fight a challenge, because you might come around the corner and see something and go, right, this is a challenge I can win. You know that you've got the resources to overcome it. You'll still get a lot of those same physiological responses. So this beautiful little study was done, and it found that something as simple as telling yourself that you're excited, to get that mindset that you're excited about this test. Okay, one of my students said, well, so does that mean, I'm excited about finishing the test? That's what I'm excited about. I'm like, yeah, okay, but not so much. It's really about looking at the thing that's about to happen and framing that for yourself as a challenge rather than a threat. Threats you run away from, you cower from. It reduces your performance, that kind of response. Whereas challenges, you kind of rise to that challenge and it boosts your performance. So it's okay to be excited. In fact, that's the best thing that you can tell yourself. Elite sports people tell themselves before an event that they're excited. It's a way of phrasing the reality of the physiology of their body, this heightened sympathetic arousal state that you're in, recognizing that to be true, but phrasing in the sense of challenge. Anyway, enough on that. Back to this question. So if you saw this question and went, hang on, miss, we never learnt about phonographs. What's this question about? I come back to the thing I started with, and that is expect the unexpected. So what physics examiners like to do is they like to know, have you understood the underlying physics, as opposed to someone who can just kind of regurgitate onto a piece of paper things that they've learnt without really understanding them. So expect the unexpected. That means to test those things, examiners like putting you in a new context, a novel context, but where the underlying principles and the skills and the knowledge, you've got those. So if you see something unexpected in a test, don't go, what's this thing, unexpected thing, I never learned about this. Go, okay, this is the novel context, I was expecting this. What's the underlying physics? And really, when you bring it down to, the question is getting you to probe the difference between angular velocity and orbital velocity, one that's dependent upon the radius, one that's not dependent upon the radius. The second part of that question is really applying the radial effect of velocity, to realize that that's the velocity, the relative velocity between the needle and the groove, okay, and how that might vary with radius, and relating that to all your knowledge about waves, around about wavelength and frequency. So we've got this microscopic image and we're seeing the physical wavelength of those wiggles in the groove, but realizing that the needle traveling at a higher velocity in position Y is going to wiggle backwards and forwards more quickly than the needle at position X, and relating that to the frequencies of the sound. So remember, box breathing, great thing to do to bring your stress back from that kind of panic level, and then frame your stress as challenge. And when you come into the physics exam, tell yourself, I'm looking for that unexpected novel context. You can't trick me, examiner, because I know the physics.